everyone, it's Todd from Sideshow Effects once again, and in this video I'm going to go over the installation and a bit of navigation of our major update to our Photoshop Pro Toolkit for the Stream Deck MK and XL devices, and you can also use it in the Stream Deck Mobile Pro as well. Now this is a major update because we have redesigned all the keys to be triggered by the Photoshop plugin that is available on the Elgato Marketplace now. What this means is all of these commands in the profile are now driven by API functions rather than shortcut commands. So what does this mean to you? It means that you can continue to use your own customized key file in Photoshop, and it also means that you are no longer bound to have to use either an English or a French or German keyboard layout. Any language keyboard layout will work with this profile, as well as any language of Photoshop will also work. So this can be used anywhere in the world. With the addition of this plugin, it has also allowed us to put in more commands into the profile. There's actually 406 new commands we were able to put in because of the plugin and the freedom of not having to use keyboard shortcuts. And the PDF in your pack will detail all of those additions. There's just a couple steps in setup that we need to do. I'm going to be demonstrating it using my Stream Deck XL device. The same will be true if you're using an MK device or even Stream Deck Mobile Pro. And I'm also demonstrating on the Mac. Most of these steps are the same on Windows. Where it differs slightly, I will show you on the Windows system. So the first thing we want to do is in the pack we have some actions, some brushes, and some shapes, and we want to install those into Photoshop. Now you can import them and load them directly in from your Sideshow Effects pack, but it's always good safekeeping and housekeeping to put them in their proper location. So on a Mac, that location, and I'll open this up so you can see my path. It will be your hard drive, users, your username, library, application support, Adobe, and the version of Photoshop that you are running. Right now I'm working with Photoshop 2025. And the presets. There's a presets folder in the Adobe Photoshop folder. Now on the Windows system, the path is users, your username, app data, roaming, Adobe, and your version of Adobe Photoshop, and the presets folder. That's where you will drop these files on the Windows system. So the actions in your Sideshow Effects pack, there are 13 of them here. We'll just open up so we can see them here. So you can see we've got 13 of these actions, and we want to place them in that actions folder. Now I've already done that ahead of time, so this is where they will sit. We also have some brushes. So a brushes file, and that will go in your brushes folder. Mine already is there. And the same thing with shapes. There's a shapes file as well, and that will go in custom shapes right here. You can see it's already been added. Now let's go into Photoshop and import them directly into the panels. So let's start with actions first. We'll open up our actions pane. We'll go to the flyout menu and we'll say load actions. You'll navigate to where you had just put those actions in that presets folder. And I would select these, and you can shift select these and say open, and they open up in your actions folder. Next is the brushes. We'll go into brushes, and same thing, flyout menu, but this one says import brushes. We'll go to that same presets folder, go into the brushes, and load this file, and it will appear in your panel. And then we'll just do the custom shapes. So we open the shapes panel, import shapes, once again to custom shapes, and we'll just import those shapes there. Now the next thing we need to do is load in the Photoshop plugin itself from the Elgato Marketplace. So you would click on the Elgato Marketplace, and it'll pop up the window in your browser. Just do a search in the search function here for Photoshop, and you'll see that under the plugins tab there's this Adobe Photoshop plugin. We'll click on that, And now you likely won't have it installed. If you don't, you'll see a Get button here. Click on Get and it will install into your Stream Deck software. Just make sure your Stream Deck software is open in the background. And also, you'll also need to make sure that you're signed into your Elgato Marketplace account. Mine says Open in Stream Deck because I already have it loaded. And you can double check that the Photoshop plugin has been loaded. You can go into your preferences here, go into the plugins, and you can see that it's loaded here. And you can also find it on the sidebar here. You can see it located here. Now the next thing to do is import our profile itself. And you can see when we go into the Profiles folder, we've got two different ones, one for the XL and one's for the MK. They are not divided into Windows or Mac because these profiles will work in Windows or Mac. So you only need to decide whichever device you are working with. Currently I'm working with the XL, so I would double click this. And it's because I have multiple devices connected to this software, it's asking me which device I want to attach it to, so I'm going to select this XL device and say install. Once it's installed, you can see it will pop up on your software and it pops up on your device. So to do a quick navigation of what we've got built into the profile pack here, on the left hand side these are mostly menu commands that simulate the same menu commands you find in Photoshop itself. So going into the tools, you can see we have many tools that are populated here. Now with previous versions of our Photoshop, using shortcut keys to open up a tool would only open up one of the tools in a bank. So for example, if we go to Photoshop here, you can see we have under Marquee, for example, we have 4 different marquee tools that could be used. Using keyboard shortcuts, you're only allowed to access one of those at a time. You can't specifically target elliptical or rectangular, etc. By using the Photoshop plugin, we're able to access any of these individual tools. So in Photoshop, I can select our elliptical, our rectangular, or even our columns. They're all available to us now. And there are several pages including all the tools that are available in Photoshop. Now File, as the name suggests, features a lot of the functions that are under the File command menu. Same thing with Edit, a lot of the functions there. I'm going to demonstrate a couple of these here. So we've got a Generative Fill Extend. This takes advantage of the Generative Fill function in Photoshop. So let's just say that, let's select my crop. Let's say my image doesn't quite fill my canvas here. I can make a selection, select the area that I want to extend this picture into with a little bit of the overlap, and we can just press Generative Fill Extend. And it fills that in for us, and we also have a couple of variations, whichever one might suit us best. So we'll delete that for now. And let's say I want to get rid of this shell that's in the picture. Let's just quickly do a lasso around it. Let's include its shadow as well. And then we can press the Generative Fill Remove. And it has taken care of that. Now let's go into another image here. Let's go to this simple image. Let's go over into the fill. This will allow us to fill in with whatever colors that we can select. So by pressing the fill command, it's very simple. We can fill it with a foreground color, for example. Just say OK, and it fills in our square with the foreground color. But what we've got built in here is we've got a whole series of different colors that we can just punch in on the fly. The first row will change just the foreground color, so I can change it to this green or this red, or we can try this deep blue. So at the press of a button, we can just change our foreground color. Same thing with background color. We can change it to a magenta if we like, or we can do both at the same time. Now you're not limited to those colors that we've got on this page. You can click on any one of these and click on the color swatch, and you can dial in whatever color you like. Let's say we just want to go with this pink instead. we select that pink and it updates the icon itself. So you can create your own bank of colors here for whatever you're working on. Now under stroke, we've given you the ability to stroke the outline of an image that's currently selected or a selection, for example. I can just press stroke and say OK, and it creates that stroke for me. But we've also created a whole bank of predefined strokes. So as you can see, they're all labeled. Let's say we want to choose a 20 pixel white stroke that is centered on the boundary of our image. We would select this and add a stroke, and instantly it produces that for us. Or let's say we wanted black. We can do the same thing, but with the black stroke. So we've got them in various sizes: 1 pixel, 5 pixel, 10 pixels, 20 pixels, white and black. Let's step back out, and we'll go into image here. You can see we have a number of the menu commands for image. We have adjustments that can be made at the press of a button. We can change our modes. And let's go into layer. Now if we go to adjustment layers here, you can see we have a lot of the adjustment layers that we can apply directly to our currently active layer. So if I want to just create a gradient map adjustment layer on this, it allows me to do that, and I can make my changes. But we've got this HSL page here. We have actually 2 pages of HSL controls. This allows me at the press of a button, I can apply a hue saturation adjustment layer, and you see our properties show up for the hue adjustment. But the rest of these keys allow us to use the Stream Deck device to make our slider adjustments. So I can change the hue by pressing and holding the hue master and sliding up or down. We can change the saturation, and we can change the lightness by using the Stream Deck device. And the same holds true for the red, green, blue. Move over and we have yellow, cyan, magenta. Now keep in mind that if I want to adjust just the red channel, let's say in this case I want to adjust the red channel lightness, I can make that change, but the interface in Photoshop does not switch over. In order to view that change, we would need to switch this to reds, and then I can see the result of what I'm doing here. It doesn't switch it automatically. Now these are still organized: modes, smart objects, align, combine your shapes, and apply styles. Select menu, same thing, all the menu controls. Filter, we have all the filters that can be applied at the press of a button. We don't need to go through them all, but they're all loaded there. And view, same thing. Window, this allows us to pop up all our different panel windows. We can arrange our windows. All the individual panels. We have a folder dedicated specifically for type functions. And we have a special folder called Art Studio, and this allows us to, when we're working on our images, and we're doing painting, we can call up different brushes at the press of a button. We have a series of different brushes here that you can use. And we can change the mode of our color panel. And over on page 2 we have another series of brushes that you can use on the fly. We have some color controls, and once again you can get in and assign these colors to the ones you're currently using so that you can swap them at the press of a button. Now this is a good time to point out that, like all of our profiles, they're easily customizable. So let's say, for example, that I want to have a series of different color swatches here. Instead of, let's say I don't need these keys here, or I can move these over here. I don't really need these. I can just delete that one. I don't use, let's say I don't use the mixer brush, I can get rid of that one. So what I can do is I can just take one of these and I can copy and I can paste it here. Let's just swap these, so they swap the location. And then I can dial in a different color combination that I might be using. And let's move that there and paste again. And I'll use a different combination. Now when I work in my document and I want to dial up a particular color, now I can paint in my red. Now I'm painting magenta. Now cyan. Switch my brush. Now I want some black. Now I want some red. Some magenta. Some cyan again, etc. So you can create a whole page dedicated to how you like to work. You are not restricted. If you wanted to retain the way our pack is built, but do a customized version, you can easily just take one of these folders and say copy, and I'm going to paste it here. And now I can change any one of these and my original remains intact and it'll remain unchanged. And I can create a whole bank of all colors here on this entire page, and I can swap between all of them. So that's true of any of the keys in this profile. And you are encouraged to move things around, copy and paste, and group the actions together that work best for your workflow. And I find that depending on what you're working on, some jobs may require a certain set of tools and commands that you're going to be using all the time. So you group those together into a folder. So let's say that I'm going to start with the layer folder. So I've made a copy of that. And let's say I'm not going to be doing any of the rasterizing on this page. So I can just click on those, get rid of those. But I want to pull in some tools. So I'm going to be doing some work with my pen, for example. So I can copy and I can just paste that there. And I definitely want the move tool. And let's say I also want to use the convert anchor point there as well. Move that over here so these are next to each other. And then I want to put in one of these colors. And I'll change the color to something else entirely that works for me, depending on what I'm working on at the moment. And now I've customized this in a certain way that is more advantageous to my workflow. And if there's other functions in here, let's say I'm going to be using a lot of blurs, I'm going to take in a Gaussian blur. We'll drop that in there. And let's say I'm also using my levels a lot of the time. So go in there, and let's say I'm not going to be using that, or I can just drop that to, this is a free spot, so drop that in there. Now I have these keys where I like them. So you can do that with any of these, and of course you can take this and just say reset to default, and then we can just title it custom or whatever you want to label it as. So that's a great way for you to customize the profile to how you like to work. And keep in mind, if you change things around and you hadn't made a copy and you, oh, okay, I kind of want to get back to the way it originally was when I first imported this profile. Well, you can just re-import the profile and it would give it a new name. It would put copy at the end here, the way I've got here. And you won't be touching your original. So we'll get rid of those for now. And one other thing I want to show you about customizing, let's go into File here, and we've included almost all the commands in Photoshop in this profile, but there are some that didn't make it in, but we do have actions for them. So here, I'll show you what I mean. There's, if we take on the Photoshop plugin menu here, we drag this play action in here. And the play action looks through our loaded actions, and you'll recall we loaded in our slideshow effects actions here. Let's just go into File, and it reads all the actions inside of that file set. You'll see we also have, we can open up specific preset documents. So let's say I want to open this photo landscape 10 by 8. Now when I go into Photoshop and I press that key, it creates a brand new document in that preset. This wasn't included in our profile, but it exists as a action that we created in our action set. Now, of course, you can go in and change the icon going into Stream Deck Library, assuming that you have loaded in our icon packs that are included in the pack. Now, we don't have an icon for that particular action, but we could do just like a new document. We'll type new, look under the Photoshop here, and just select this new, and I close that. And we now have that action added to our profile. Now we can go into shapes. This is just a few shapes to get you started. Arrows are often used, some stars, things like that. We just put in as a little bit of a freebie that if you need a shape called up at the touch of a button, you need an arrow. There we have an arrow. It's actually on white, so we can change its color to something else. So all these shapes are available at the press of a button. Now the swatches are the same as what they were in their previous versions, except they are now much, much faster because they're now driven by the plugin. So in the case of this, if I want to go into this red here, and I want this particular red color, it of course changes my foreground color. But just like before, I can create a swatch preset by pressing the preset button, and it instantly makes it for us in our swatches folder. So it's much faster than the old way we had of doing things. It's pretty much instant when it makes the swatch folder for us. So that's it. That's the new version 4 of our Photoshop Pro Toolkit for the Stream Deck XL and MK devices. I hope you get use out of the expanded pack that we've now been able to pull together, and it's going to help you get through your work quicker and leave more time for creativity. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon.